Sonic the Hedgehog, a brilliant icon to ever exist, to the point where he's one of the most recognizable video game characters ever and has made an impact on multiple people, including myself, and has been around for a full 35 years. I have been a fan of this franchise since 2005, with my first ever Sonic game being Sonic Heroes for the original Xbox, given to me as a gift by one of my coolest cousins. I was in mere shock when seeing a fast blue hedgehog, a two-tailed yellow fox, and a strong red echidna with boxing gloves being grouped together and running through several places while fighting against random robots. After playing the first level and beating it, my life had begun to change. I have started to become obsessed with the series and I have since never stopped. In the next few years later, I started collecting more Sonic games, such as Sonic Advance 3 for the Game Boy Advance, Sonic Mega Collection Plus, Sega Superstars Tennis, and Sonic Unleashed, all for the PlayStation 2, which was my first ever video game console, and little did I know it would end up becoming the best selling console of all time for multiple reasons. I even got around to watching Sonic X when it was airing on 4Kids TV back in 2007, and it made me adore this blue rat even more than I should have, even to the point where I called it my favorite TV show of all time in my kid years. My opinions on it have changed over time due to my current preference for the original Japanese version, but that's a story for another day. In 2009, when receiving my copy of Sonic Mega Collection for the PlayStation 2, I got to see and experience the Sega Genesis games, and started with the one that spawned one of the biggest media franchises of all time. It's because of this that I joined the fandom in 2015, and since then, I continued watching several content creators who created amazing Sonic content, played a couple of fan games and mods made by talented individuals, met so many cool people, some of which I may even consider close friends, and literally everybody else who paid actual respect to the companies responsible for creating this iconic blue hero for all of us to remember that he is still the legend after 35 years later. Today, I am starting an all-new retrospective on a franchise that holds very dear to my heart, the Sonic the Hedgehog series, where I'll be doing comprehensive reviews of most games, including spin-offs and lesser-known entries. Now that I am an experienced video creator, I have the skills to make a proper essay-style format that a younger teenage Braun from 2016 would have never accomplished otherwise, and there's no better way to do it than with the series starring this iconic blue hedgehog for my new review series on this channel. Join me as I cover Sonic the Hedgehog 1991 for the Sega Genesis. The production and development for Sonic began in April 1990 when Sega requested to make a new mascot in order to compete with Nintendo's own mascot, Mario. Their previous one was Alex Kidd, but they viewed him as unsatisfactory and the character was dropped. They commissioned the game to showcase the technical abilities of the Mega Drive, or as we know in the West, the Sega Genesis, which was released nearly 2 years before its competitor, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The development itself was handled by 7 people, such as Naoto Oshima and the infamous Yuji Naka. They wanted to create a fast-paced video game that would allow players to speedrun early levels on repeat playthroughs despite having a simple control scheme. Wait, did they predict the speedrunning community which would end up becoming a thing over a decade later? That makes sense for what they intended. During the course of development, fans have sent over 200 character designs to Sega of Japan, some of which that included a bulldog, robots, and a warrior type character, but most, if not all submissions, were discarded. Naoto Oshima, a designer, had pitched ideas for several other character designs, one of which that involved a mustachioed man in green pajamas who would later become Dr. Eggman, and another being a blue cartoon rabbit. Interestingly, the rabbit received the most support from the proposals. Eventually, Naoto Oshima reached out to Yuji Naka to help him start the development process, and they even pitched their ideas to the Sega board members in order to bring marketing materials based on this rabbit character. Yuji Naka demonstrated a game prototype that would feature a fast-moving character who rolls into a ball through long tubes and utilizing a Dort matrix that allowed the character sprites to follow curved trajectories. This pitch was successfully well received, and Sega would later assign Hirokazu Yashara to supervise the project. While the game was in development, the team ran into unfortunate issues due to one complex. This rabbit would pick up enemies with his ears, then aim and throw them. I begin to think they likely saved this concept for another game with a cool playstyle that would be released 17 years later. The developers found this to be too complicated with the Mega Drive's hardware, and they felt that it clashed with the speed-oriented gameplay and required a more elaborate control scheme to fit this type of mechanic. As a result, the rabbit character was dropped. This is where the design process starts to get more interesting. The team conceptualized a rolling attack and researched animals that could have a plausible way of rolling. The two that they came up with are an armadillo, who by the way wouldn't be a thing until 2 years later, and a hedgehog, to which the latter was chosen to better suit the rolling concept. Eventually, after Oshima's trip to New York City, where he presented people sketches of the character designs he pitched, the hedgehog design ended up proving to be the most popular, therefore reinforcing the team's choice. Later, this hedgehog character would finally become the one we all know and love, Sonic the Hedgehog, which the team settled on from the phrase Supersonic, the speed of sound, and their new headquarters would be named Sonic Team. They wanted to have Sonic be an easily recognizable mascot for Sega through a multitude of reasons. His design is inspired by American cartoon characters such as Mickey Mouse and Felix the Cat. His blue skin color represents peace, coolness, and earth. His shoes were inspired by Santa Claus and Michael Jackson's clothing seen on the cover album titled Bad. In addition, they give him a distinct personality based on 3 core pillars which align with Sega's image at the time: cool, challenger, and a backstory, well, mostly the first 2. And to their credit, they did a good job with it and established his usual behavior and does what needs to be done. While conceptualizing various ideas for the game and intending to add them, they unfortunately ran into major conflicts with Sega of America. For starters, Oshima decided to give Sonic a human girlfriend named Madonna to, quote-unquote, combat the idea that the character was too childish. Madonna would have served as a damsel in distress victim who Sonic would have to rescue in the game. The developers also intended to include a rock band in the sound test menu with animations of Sonic dancing. There's even artwork of Sonic collaborating in said rock band with 4 other characters, all of which that have been named. The guy playing the blue guitar is Max the monkey, the guy playing the drums is Mac the rabbit, the guy playing the red guitar is Sharps the parakeet, and the guy playing the keyboard is Vector the crocodile, who would later become an actual character by Knuckles Chaotix. Interestingly, the other 3 characters, Max, Mac, and Sharps, would eventually appear in the Archie Sonic comic series during its modern run. That's pretty sick. The rock band concept would end up inspiring Sonic Underground, where Sonic primarily plays a guitar as his main instrument of choice, as well as a weapon, though he also uses one in a scene from the Sadie M series, which premiered 6 years prior to the former. Ultimately, both this and the Madonna concept were scrapped due to the aforementioned conflicts. In June of 1990, a demo of the game was showcased at the Tokyo Toy Show by presenting an early version of Green Hill Zone, though only limited to having Sonic run through a simple course with 7-layer scrolling, all with the intention of showcasing the capabilities of the Mega Drive. This one marks Sonic's first ever appearance to the public. Unfortunately, this demo failed to get widespread attention from the press. Additionally, Yuji Naka planned to include it in the GameCube version of Sonic Mega Collection, but had no luck in finding it, thus it became permanent lost media for Sega to ever retrieve. Big props to the Sonic community for creating fan mods of this demo, as they did a nice job replicating nearly everything that was shown in it. In regards to the Blue Blur himself, his actual first appearance in a game, even before his own and less than a year later, was Rad Mobile, but as a car ornament. Yeah, I'm not counting this, I'm sorry. His first major appearance is in this iconic Mega Drive title of the same name. There's more to talk about regarding the pre and post release of the game, but I'll delve into more on it later the further we go into this review. Sonic is a 2D side-scrolling platformer, similar to other games in this era, such as the Super Mario series, where players take control of the titular character as he can spin jump, run at top speed, and roll when having enough acceleration. The control scheme for this game is as simple as it gets, and was obviously intended by the developers. The Sega Genesis controller consists of 3 face buttons, A, B, and C, all of which that have jump mapped to them, and it absolutely works for a game like this. Other Sega Genesis games, like Comix Zone, require a 6-button Genesis controller to utilize certain moves or item usage. In the case of Sonic 1, having all 3 buttons use jump makes perfect sense for this platformer. Some platformers like the Super Mario games on the NES and SNES have a secondary button for the character to initiate another move, such as sprinting, or in others like in Mega Man, where the character can shoot with the use of the B button. For Sonic, no secondary button is necessary for all of his trademark moves, which will carry for the next few entries. Being the first Sonic game of the franchise, it introduces a lot of well-known concepts that are seen countless times in later entries, such as rings, TV-shaped item boxes that grant extra abilities, special stages, and the Chaos Emeralds. Also introduced in this game is the maniacal scientist named Dr. Ivo Eggman Robotnik, whose main motivation is to hunt down 6 Chaos Emeralds after discovering their existence on South Island, which he invades by trapping innocent animals inside his robot army, the Batniks, as their fuel source for activity. He seeks and attempts to collect these magical gems so that he can use them to build weapons of mass destruction. Sonic finds out about this invasion and begins to put a stop to the Mad Doctor for fulfilling his plans. The game features a total of 6 zones: Green Hill, Marble, Spring Yard, Labyrinth, Starlight, and Scrap Brain. Each area is divided into 3 acts, which culminate into a boss fight with Eggman at the end. The rings in this game take the role of providing essential health, as well as a few other instances. If Sonic is hit by a Badnik or stage hazard, he will lose all of his rings, regardless of how many he has collected, though some can be recollected before disappearing. However, there are some very dangerous hazards that can result in instant death, regardless of how many rings that have been attained. This includes being crushed, falling into a bottomless pit, drowning, and even a time over if one ends up exceeding past the 10-minute time limit for each stage. This game also features a save point mechanic in the form of star posts, which, upon passing it, will save your current progress up to that point, and the character will respawn there after death. This has since been dubbed checkpoint in most platformers. When starting the game, you have 3 lives by default, but they can be increased by hitting 1-up item boxes or getting 100 rings. The game features 5 distinct power-ups contained in the form of TV-like item boxes as mentioned before, Super Ring which grants 10 rings, Invincibility which grants temporary invulnerability, Power Sneakers which grants a temporary increased speed, a standard shield which grants an additional layer of protection from obstacles, and the 1-ups for reasons that were mentioned already. All 6 zones feature a total of 3 acts, with the first 2 ending by passing a gold plate, and Act 3 ending with a boss fight against Eggman. When he is defeated, he leaves a big capsule at the end of the stage, and hitting a switch to deactivate it allows Sonic to free the trapped animals and will lead the player to the next stage. When each act is completed, the player's score is tallied based on the number of rings that have been collected and the time spent on the level. Green Hill Zone. The very first level and location explored in the series is depicted as a large field with tons of green grass, brown trees, and huge mountains. This tropical region takes place on South Island, where Sonic's first adventure begins after he discovers Eggman's invasion. Being the first stage of the game, the level design is very linear and straightforward, as Sonic encounters several Badniks that he needs to defeat in order to free the animals, and there are also springs and TV-like item boxes that can be found inside palm trees, and even dangerous hazards such as spike fields. There are also some walls in the level that can be smashed through with the spin roll if enough speed is gained. Through this, alternate pathways can be accessed. There are 3 main pathways you can take: the top path with numerous floating platforms, the center path with a more basic layout, or the bottom path, which is the most useful in Act 3. In Act 2, however, you do still have to go through the center path, which has a section embedded with spikes. If you're a skilled player or a speedrunner, this is a non-issue, but if you're a casual player, this may be troublesome, but you'll eventually learn the layout on repeat playthroughs. One of the most known aspects about this stage is the curling tunnels that Sonic goes through at high speed, which can lead to either the top route, where it has springs that are shaped in a pattern of a triangle along with some buzz bombers, or jumping over the slope that leads to it and heading to the bottom route, which is significantly faster than the former. At the end of Act 3, Sonic encounters Eggman at the end, who uses a weapon called the Egg Wrecker, which is simply a brown ball extracted from his Eggmobile. The battle takes place in the final section of the stage, where there are two platforms on the left and right side respectively. Eggman will use this weapon to move back and forth while the ball swings up and down. Is he even trying? Either way, it's a very simple first boss where he moves in a linear pattern. Sonic can use the platforms to avoid the wrecking ball since it has a hitbox. Other than that, Eggman is defeated after 8 hits, and Sonic hits the animal capsule that Eggman leaves behind. In later remakes, this boss fight has been significantly altered. In Sonic Genesis, the GBA remake, you can reach and bounce on Eggman's head up to 8 times, effectively winning the fight in one cycle. In the 2013 remaster by Christian Whitehead, Eggman no longer has a hitbox during his entrance, as in the original Genesis version, he can be damaged immediately when he first appears. Speedrunners take advantage of this by utilizing a strategy, being that of doing several item box and badnik bounces throughout the rest of the stage, to be able to land on Eggman the exact moment he spawns in, allowing for the first 7 hits in. I've never been able to do it due to how difficult it is, but it most definitely helps with saving time. That is it for Green Hill Zone, and be fully warned, this unfortunately will not be the last time we visit this place. Marble Zone is where the difficulty starts to pace up a bit. It takes place in an ancient underground dungeon with multiple traps that have several lava pools and more spikes. The outside portions of the level feature Green Hill-like open fields, grass, and platforms which will sink if they are stepped on, causing them to burn. This level can be notoriously difficult for first time players due to the several traps it has, and you will need to take your time and react to these obstacles. The most common ones are the various types of crushers that appear in the inside/underground sections, one of which being metal platforms with spikes at the bottom, and the other being square weights without spikes. Both of these are pulled up and dropped down with chains. It's possible in this part in Act 1 that if you're quick enough when coming up to them after jumping on the line of green cubes, you should be able to reach the top of them without needing to wait for them. The main gimmick of this level has Sonic moving a green cube either by simply pushing or rolling into it. This happens in all 3 acts. The first 2 are very simple, but Act 3 is where it'll test your patience. You need to push this cube into the lava and it will slowly move across the surface until the lava pool bursts into fiery sprouts that can send the block upwards, allowing Sonic to reach the top path. This is my least favorite part of the stage. It just feels like an auto-scroller that kills the pacing, especially with how slow it is. When reaching the final outdoor section, Sonic encounters Eggman and his Egg Scorcher. Similar to the previous boss, this boss fight is centered around 2 platforms, only this time, there are stone grounds with a pool of lava in the middle. Eggman will move to each platform and drop a fireball on them, which will cause said fireball to be split into multiple fireballs that cover the platform on both sides. Sonic will need to move to the other side to avoid this move. Eggman will repeat this pattern until he is defeated after 8 hits. As such, Sonic hits the animal capsule and is ready to head into the next area. Spring Yard feels like a refresher after the seemingly slow and tedious moments of Marble. This area is an amusement park located inside an urban city. In the background of the stage, you can see silhouettes of city buildings which are kinda giving New York vibes, huge bushes when approaching the bottom part of the stage, and purple mountains in the far horizon when approaching the top part of the stage. Throughout the level, several signs are shown to be formed into luminous words, such as CPU, on, up, and even the most peculiar one that says cope. Gee, I sure hope that won't be used as a slang term nearly 30 years later. This stage is one of my favorites in the game because of the high level speedrunning tricks that can be performed. In Act 1, you would casually have to stand in between these slow moving blocks appearing in rows of 3 and enter the bottom pathway. But if you're a skilled player or speedrunner, you can just do this instead. Unfortunately, the other ones cannot be skipped, so you still have to slowly use them to reach the next pathways. This is also the first stage to introduce bumpers, which can either be useful or be annoying obstacles. And boy oh boy, we're going to be seeing them a lot in the later games, mostly in casino stages. Even when playing casually, this stage can still be fun due to the amount of slow Sonic can use to increase his speed by rolling. He'll even cause the camera to barely keep up with him for a brief moment. I love how Act 2 and 3 use the exact same slope, as the former has it in the mid half of the stage and the latter has it at the beginning. Very clever design. The best part of this level is one of the U-shaped curves in Act 3, where if Sonic rolls down here, he can increase his momentum and enter a hidden room where both the invincibility and power sneakers are located. Hitting them both will make Sonic an ancestral godlike being. At the end of the stage, Eggman comes in with a big pointy spike under his Eggmobile called the Egg Stinger. He will use this to try to stab Sonic if he's beneath him. Sonic can avoid it, which will result in Eggman breaking the blocks instead. It's best to be very cautious for the remainder of the fight, because if Eggman breaks all of the blocks, there will be nothing but a bottomless pit. So it's basically a do or die situation. In the 2013 Christian Whitehead remaster, they added these square-shaped pillars on both sides of the arena when the boss fight begins. Initially, I thought this was a very odd choice, but then I realized it was done to make sure that only 10 blocks should be used in the fight, just like in the original Genesis version. When Eggman is defeated, the pillars will retract. As such, Sonic hits the Animal Capsule and travels to the next area in South Island. Labyrinth Zone, a stage that is notable for being the first in the franchise to feature underwater sections, as well as that dreadful drowning theme. First things first, I do admire the way the stage looks. Being a flooded ruin area consisting of mostly yellow bricks, there are tons of mosaic art shown in both the background and foreground, and all of them are also square shaped. The water in this level is strangely green, so it makes me wonder, is this sewer water? Or at least something similar to it. I'm probably looking into it too much. Anyways, this stage is often hated by a lot of people because it's very slow, monotonous, and that you're spending most of it underwater. I'm gonna be honest, it's not that bad. Yes, it is flawed at times and I have my criticisms with it, but it doesn't mean I consider it a weak level. It's all in the matter of being skilled at the game and being aware of the level layouts. For instance, in Act 1, normally when playing casually, you would have to activate the switch on the right in the second underwater section where Sonic will be carried away by the current. This will lead into a very long and super slow pathway, with the most annoying part being having to navigate through this narrow section while avoiding the spears. It sucks and I despise it very much. So instead, I will do a strat that skips this entire path. In the same second underwater section of the level, there is another switch that can be activated to open a door, but if you carefully time your jump off of the rising platform before being hit by the spikes, and if you backtrack a bit, you'll notice that the aforementioned switch will also spawn a platform that Sonic can use to cross the gap and reach a different path, which is much more faster than the intended routes, and it saves you a lot of time. Nothing much to say on Act 2 since it's more or less the same. For Act 3, it's similar to Act 1 on account of it having two different pathways, but it starts off on you entering what seemingly appears to be an endless water slide. When falling on the left, you need to jump off to reach the rocky ledges on the left, one that contains a shield monitor and the other that features a switch alongside a ring monitor just under it that triggers an open exit from the section upon activation, which will allow Sonic to make his way out of there. On a side note, the sound effect that plays when this happens differs on some versions. In the original Genesis version, it normally sounds like this. In the 2013 Christian Whitehead port, it is noticeably quieter. But when playing on the Sonic Mega Collection, a completely different sound effect plays and it's very loud. You wouldn't believe me if I said how much that gave me a jump scare when I played this as a child. Like, why does it have to be that loud? Anyways, as I said earlier, there are two paths you can take. In the part where there are 4 spears, there is a path that leads to the upper route. I never go this way because it is longer and slower with tons of traps and conveyor belts that carry platforms, switches, springs, and spikes, so it's always best to take the lower route. This will lead Sonic into being pulled into another water current as he has to grab onto poles to avoid being hit by the spikes. You also gotta be very cautious about your limited breathing time around here. When you hear the sound effect, that indicates that the character is going to drown, and the drowning theme will eventually play. If an air bubble is not attained during this period, the character will drown, costing him his life. We will be seeing these a lot in several entries, so always be prepared. Sonic runs into Eggman once again at the end of the level, but this time, the Mad Doctor doesn't actively attempt to attack. Instead, he tries to lure the blue boy into these same several traps encountered throughout the level, including these gargoyle heads that shoot red bullets. This boss can be tough to manage, especially on a first playthrough, since it's pretty easy to receive knockback from the traps. But really, it's not that difficult. There was an instance where I took a hit from a spear, but it actually helped me reach the end with my invincibility frames. That'll be a discussion for another review. Sonic manages to reach Eggman and chases him to the end of the level while hitting an animal capsule leading to the next area on South Island. Starlight Zone, the most gorgeous looking level in the game while also being the shortest of the 6 levels. This area takes place
at night
and at a large construction site with highways being littered with street lamps, green girders, red traffic cones, pots with bushes, and some red traffic lights. I always love looking at the beautiful black sky with all the small stars everywhere. Reminds me a whole lot of Dark Band Stage 3 from Mega Man 5. This stage feels like a nighttime version of Spring Yard Zone, as it has more slopes, more floating platforms, various springs, and some blocky platforms, which thankfully are not needed to progress. New to this level are the seesaws with a small spike ball on the other side, which Sonic can use to reach higher elevations. This is useful in Act 3 because it will take you to a much faster route. Another gimmick in this stage are these fans that are somehow strong enough to push Sonic back regardless of his speed. Other than that, there's not really much I can add. It's a very fun, high platforming and momentum based level, and it's what makes it my favorite one overall despite its short length. At the end of the level, Eggman appears with his Egg Spiker equipped on his Eggmobile and uses it to drop small spike ball bombs on one of the 3 seesaws. When they explode, they will turn into smaller red blinking balls which can cause damage. Sonic can use these bombs to his advantage in the fight. If he launches them upwards, there is a chance that they will explode on contact with Eggman, which can damage him as well. After another 8 hits, the boss is over and Sonic hits another animal capsule, leading to the final area on South Island. Time for the big finale, which is Scrap Brain Zone, the first Dr. Eggman base that Sonic infiltrates that is located on South Island. As you guessed it, this is the hardest level in the game, filled with several badniks, several traps, more blocks, and more platforms. This stage is where your testament of skills begin. This stage features some platforms that disappear and reappear endlessly, very similar to the ones from the Mega Man series, and there are others that flip around in clockwise form, which Sonic can use to bypass and stand on them. Act 2 features flywheels that Sonic can stick onto and roll, then jump at the right time to reach higher sections, as well as some elevators that transport Sonic through tubes. In Act 3, for some reason the stage turns into a strange replica of Labyrinth Zone, with its foreground design being gray instead of brown, the background being green instead of brown, and the water being pink instead of green. Potential foreshadowing? Anyway, this act is literally nothing but an extreme endurance test if you go to the intended route where there are more underwater sections with a lot less air bubbles to survive. But there is a way to skip all of this. At the start, you land on the ruin that slowly rides down the slope. If you're able to get past the ruin before it touches the wall, you can avoid that route and enter the easier and faster route. Can save up to 2 minutes. Oh, and no boss fight here by the way. Instead, there are a series of red springs that Sonic uses to reach the final area, the Final Zone, a short, one-act stage. You run in a straight line until you find the Egg Face in his final contraption, the Egg Crusher, which consists of 4 large cylindrical pistons. When it's activated, only 2 of them move at a time and are capable of crushing Sonic if he's not careful. Eggman will reveal himself in one of the pistons, and Sonic can only attack him once. Keep in mind that this is affected by RNG, as it is always random which of these pistons Eggman will appear in. Between each cycle, a red bulb on the right side will generate 4 purple energy balls before descending downwards towards Sonic, which he can easily avoid. There are also no rings present in the stage that help you survive, but considering the simple attack pattern of this boss, I'd say that makes sense, and I personally believe that this was a good move by Sonic Team. After 8 hits, Dr. Eggy Boy is defeated one last time, but not before Sonic lands yet another blow to the Doctor to put an end to his schemes once and for all. Afterwards, Sonic returns to Green Hill to celebrate his first major W with all of his adorable little animal friends, concluding the story. Should note that the game has 2 different endings. If Sonic has not collected all 6 Chaos Emeralds, he will stop, look at the camera with a seemingly annoyed look, then do a victory pose. If he has collected all of the Chaos Emeralds, they will simply float up into the air in a circular pattern, the area flashes, and they create extra flowers. That's it. We went through all the trouble of going for the gems just for this to happen. Alright then, that brings us to the next topic, the special stages. As stated earlier, the game features 6 mystical gems, the Chaos Emeralds, located in the special stages and are the reason Dr. Eggman invaded the island. To enter a special stage, Sonic needs to collect 50 rings or more before passing a goalpost where a giant ring appears, which the emeralds are absconded in. There is something that you do need to be aware of though. If you pass the goalpost and take more than 2 seconds to enter the ring, your controls will be locked, making you lose your chance at entering the stage. Admittedly, this can be frustrating on a first time playthrough, but there is a trick that I managed to discover on my own when playing this as a kid, and it helps prevent this issue. If you jump at the last second off screen before the stage clear theme plays, you get to maintain control of Sonic. This was clearly a bug accidentally left in by Sonic Team, considering that this was removed in the 2013 Christian Whitehead port, making the opportunity to enter the special stage even more limited. Upon entering the giant ring, Sonic will be transported to unusual looking colorful dimensions with mazes whose perimeters are bordered by flashing cubes. The background is depicted with green birds flying through the sky with clouds before turning into blue fishes swimming through the sea. I always loved this aesthetic. The mazes will automatically rotate for the entirety of the level, and Sonic can only navigate in ball form. There are 6 different objects that act as obstacles. The bumpers from Spring Yard Zone, jump stands, up-down blocks that change the speed of the maze's rotation, the reverse block that makes the rotation change to the opposite direction, and the diamond-shaped color blocks that are currently surrounding a Chaos Emerald, which is needed to complete the stage, and the very misleading goal blocks. These stages can be very tricky due to the maze constantly rotating, which can lead you in the wrong directions, especially around the bumpers that can add fuel to the fire. But either way, to reach the Chaos Emerald, Sonic needs to get rid of the colored blocks in order to obtain it, but again, due to the maze constantly rotating, it can be very troublesome, especially in the 3rd special stage. Also, these stages are the only way that you can earn continues, which are earned after collecting 50 rings and hearing this jingle. A continue is a mechanic where if you get a game over, the player is given another chance to retry the current level they are in, but this is limited because if you waste time and let the counter reach 0, there goes your chance, and that game over prompt will bring it all the way back to the beginning of the game, which may lead to frustration from some players. This is exactly why save files have been added in future re-releases and ports. The last part of the credits will also change based on the circumstance. If Sonic has collected all 6 Chaos Emeralds, Dr. Eggy Boy will throw a temper tantrum and stomp on the end text, which is hilarious. But if Sonic has not collected all 6 emeralds, the egg face will be shown juggling them and will straight up laugh at you. How the heck did he get them anyway? Did he enter the trippy special stages too? Because I somehow refuse to believe this. The game also displays a try again text to encourage you to get the gems, but let's be honest, it doesn't really change anything in the grand scheme of things, and I already discussed what happens when you do, so nah, I think I'm good. Fun fact by the way, this game's special stages were inspired by the 1989 game, Chemotry, which has very similar gameplay. The only differences are that the mazes can be controlled and that the special stages must be completed in a time limit. Yuji Naka had confirmed that he designed the Sonic 1 special stages so that the player can control Sonic himself. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now that the main story and gameplay have been covered, let's talk about the music created for the game. The soundtrack was composed by Masato Nakamura, who is a part of a J-pop band called Dreams Come True. He was provided with screenshots and descriptions to visualize the game's atmosphere, and when he approached the project while viewing it as if it were a film, he drew inspiration from the scores used in the 1980s movies like Top Gun. He worked on Sonic's music concurrently with the Dreams Come True album, titled Million Kisses, and had stated that he had extreme difficulty trying to adapt to the limited sound capabilities of the Mega Drive. 5 months after the game was showcased at the Tokyo Game Show, around November 1990, Sega became a sponsor of Dreams Come True's tour in Japan, and they presented this advertisement poster that they put on the truck. Once again, this was such a good move by them to introduce Sonic to the public for the first time. Anyways, going back to Nakamura, the very first track he created for the game was Green Hill Zone, followed by the title screen theme, then went on to create the rest all on his own. I've always adored Sonic 1's soundtrack for the longest time, and this man did a terrific job with all of them. My favorites being Green Hill, Spring Yard, Labyrinth, and Starlight. Some of these stage soundtracks, besides Green Hill Zone, will be remixed for future entries like Sonic Advance. The instrumentation and compositions that Nakamura used for these tracks captured the authentic feel of the Sega Genesis sound chip, and it works so fluidly well. Big props to this man. For a 1991 game, the graphics and visuals are still aesthetically pleasing and gorgeous to look at even in this day and age. I already mentioned the overall background designs and the unique aspects of the stages when going over them, but I actually forgot to mention Scrap Brain Zone while writing this part of the script. This is the only stage in the game that has a different background per act. Act 1 takes place outside the factory, where you see several buildings in the background in the form of silhouettes and forming smoke. This would end up inspiring the well-known location featured in the Sonic SATI-M series, Sonic Underground, and the Archie comics, Robotropolis. Act 2 takes place inside one of the factories, where there are now green mechanical walls in the background. Also, one of the walls looks like it has a face. Good luck unseeing that. And Act 3 is basically a Labyrinth Zone Act 4, but recolored. According to Sonic Team, they said that the background for this act was going to have a different look early on, but it was ultimately changed to a Labyrinth replica due to the capacity and time issues. This is also the only stage where the giant ring does not appear for the special stage, even when getting 50 rings, making Starlight the last stage before this one to be able to do so. At first, I thought this was done intentionally because of the fact that we're at the climax of the game with this being the final level, but this was actually because of a graphical issue. The reason the giant ring doesn't spawn is due to the RAM that the developers used to animate it, and it just so happens to be the same RAM they used for the animation of the smoke. I think I'm starting to understand why they had to do this, because in the previous stages where the giant ring appears, its animation will cause the goalpost to glitch and start flickering, as well as part of the ring itself. Apparently that common error from several NES games remains effective on a Sega Genesis game. Crazy, isn't it? Despite these odd quirks, they still did a fabulous job utilizing the capabilities of the Genesis hardware, and literally everything such as the sprite work, mechanics, and art are still stellar even after 35 years later. Next thing that we're discussing is Sonic's redesign that was exclusive to America, aka the West. Starting off, the Japanese and European box arts for the game display Sonic in his original design created by Oshima, but in America, the design has been altered by the localization team. In the US box art for the game, Sonic is shown in a slightly different look. Most notably, his spikes on the back of his head appear to resemble some sort of a mohawk hairstyle that most fans would always claim. I can kinda see it. I've noticed that people always tend to make the mistake of saying that this cover art was drawn by a popular artist, Greg Martin. And while it is true he created tons of other artworks of Sonic in the early 1990s, this one was actually not made by him. It was made by a different artist, Greg Ray, who is best known for creating artwork for the Disney and Looney Tunes franchises. He also created the cover illustrations for the early Sonic books during the early 90s as well. Case in point, this Sonic design will be the primary basis for later artwork for the games in the early to mid 90s created by Martin, as well as the first 11 issues of the Archie Sonic series, and the first 3 Sonic cartoons produced by DIC Entertainment. Considering that the only reason that this redesign got approved was to try to increase the game's marketing for the West, it's safe to say that to their credit, they were somehow still successful with it, and it's most definitely the reason the aforementioned media exists. We would still see his original Japan design throughout the West until Sonic Adventure's release in 1998. In my personal opinion, I low-key dig this design. I always loved it a lot when I was younger, and it's one of the main reasons why I cherish early Archie Sonic for its comedic humor, and I see why it works so well for Adventures of Sonic, and even the SATI-M series, despite its darker tone. BTW, SATI-M Sonic is one of the best versions of the character. Might be a hot take, but I'll forever stand by it. Anyways, this redesign will always be adorable and very nostalgic, and I'm happy it existed to increase the American marketing, and very big thanks to Greg Ray for creating it. This little guy will always have a special place in my heart. Next, let's discuss the unused concepts and other lost content. First off, the game's title screen was originally going to have the press start button text. For whatever reason, it was cut from the final game. This would eventually be re-added in future ports, such as the 2013 Christian Whitehead port. Also, in the level select cheat code, which you can input by pressing up, down, left, right, hearing a ring chime, and holding the start button in the final game, there used to be an original level select before it was changed. Labyrinth was originally going to be the second stage in the game, but was put as the fourth stage instead. Marble Zone was going to be the third zone before being changed to the second zone, and Starlight Zone was going to be the fourth zone before being put as the fifth stage. Springyard and Scrapbrain are the only stages to have name changes, as the former was originally called Sparkling Zone, and the latter was originally called Clockwork Zone. Since 2021, conveniently on the series' 30th anniversary, fans have dropped a prototype version of the game that was made around May of 1991, 1 month before the final game release, and it has the original level order as well as the original look for the stages. Needless to say, I wasn't aware of the existence of most of these until doing research for this video, and it's rather surprising that they've been kept in secret for this long. This prototype includes several objects that were cut from the final game, such as the rolling checkered ball in Green Hill, which will become the egg wrecker in the final game, the UFOs in Marble Zone, which to be honest look more like Saturns than actual UFOs. Labyrinth Zone had a completely different background, which essentially may have been the basis of the 8-bit version of the stage, and Sparkling Zone had a starry sky background and more of a focus on neon lights and signs with text. This apparently inspired the Casino stages in later entries. Clockwork Zone appeared to be unfinished as it lacked an actual background, and how the stage itself is sometimes called Clockwork Zone because the devs did not make the W letter in the game's code. Then again, the game was still in development at the time before they put out this prototype, so it gets a pass. Case in point, it's cool to see that this got resurfaced online after nearly 30 years. The closest we ever got to this were some ROM hacks that referenced it. Not kidding, they exist, and I actually played some of them when I was a kid. This prototype also added one of the unused sprites, which is Sonic holding his fist up while jumping after passing a goalpost, which kinda reminds me of Mega Man X's victory pose when he beats a boss. The first time I've seen this sprite was in Sonic Mega Mix, which is one of the most popular Sonic ROM hacks of all time, as well as the first one I played, and I had no clue it came from this prototype. That ROM hack really introduced me to a lot of things at a young age. This pose would eventually make it into Sonic Mania during his Act Clear animation. Good stuff. There's a lot more to this prototype and other cut content beyond all the things I discussed, and I don't want to cramp all of them in this review, so I will leave the links for each of them in the description below so you can check it out for yourselves. Last thing we are discussing are the re-releases and future ports of Sonic 1, many of which that I own. To date, the original Sonic is the most ported game in the franchise, and it's literally on every console generation. The original Genesis version sold over 15 million copies, making it the best-selling game on the system and successfully fulfilling Sega's wishes of the Hedgehog being their mascot. Since then, the game has been ported to several compilations over the years, such as Sonic Jam for the Sega Saturn and Sonic Mega Collection for the Nintendo GameCube, as well as the Plus expansion on the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox, the latter on the aforementioned systems, which was my first exposure to the game alongside other Sega Genesis and Game Gear games. It also got remasters, such as the god-awful Game Boy Advance remake that released in 2006, and the well-received mobile port from 2013 that eventually got added to Sonic Origins. The version of the game that I recorded footage of for most of the review is the Sega Ages port for the Nintendo Switch, which in my opinion is the best way to play the original Genesis version of Sonic 1. This port is an emulated but modded version of the game, as literally everything that was in the OG version, including the different speed of the clouds in the title screen from the JP and US versions, are all present here. It has a save state feature, a rank keep mode, a challenge mode, online ranking, and a replay of your own playthrough after beating the game. This port also adds the spin dash and drop dash, which first debuted in Sonic 2 and Sonic Mania respectively. I never used either of these, as the game was obviously never designed with them in mind in the first place, but it's nice that they're there for potential speedrunning purposes. Similar to the Mega Man Legacy collections, it has extra display settings that you can choose to your own liking. I love that they added the smoothing effect, which makes me feel like I'm playing this on the Xbox 360. But I'd say the best option is to play without the display effects, because it most definitely ensured the best high definition quality I can ever get out of the OG Genesis version. And to top it all off, there are no signs of input lag, further making it greatly superior to every other port that had also used emulation for the OG game. Once again, due to the accuracy it has to the original, the extra optional features, perfect emulation with pixel perfect scaling, and how well it runs with no input lag, it is undoubtedly the best version of the Sega Genesis Sonic 1. If you have a Switch or Switch 2, please get this if you are interested in getting the true authentic experience. And I say the best version of the original Genesis Sonic 1 because the actual best version of Sonic 1 that isn't an emulated port of that version is the 2013 mobile port that was developed by Christian Whitehead and Headcanon, ran by Simon Tomley, who both used the retro engine for the game and was the same one they used for the 2011 remaster of Sonic CD. I'll save my full discussion and thoughts on their history of taking part in the franchise for the eventual Sonic CD review, but I'll go over how this remaster works and plays. The Christian Whitehead port, or otherwise known as the Retro Engine port, released in March 2013 for mobile devices, and it has since received positive reception. The game is displayed in 16:9 screen ratio, meaning that it's in widescreen. The spin dash has been added as an optional move, a time attack mode has been added, and a later update for the game has added achievements as well. In addition, Sonic's best buddies, Tails and Knuckles, have been added as playable characters despite them not being created yet at the time of the original game's release. The Retro Engine even made tweaks to the level design to accommodate their gameplay style. That's so awesome! You can even have Tails accompany Sonic, just like in Sonic 2 and 3, and he can still help Sonic reach higher pathways and be useful in boss fights against Eggman. Even the title screen changes depending on who you play as. Double awesome! The main highlight of this remaster are the extra options that you can find in the hidden level select, which reuses the one from Sonic 2. There, it lets you turn off the spin dash, turn the ground and air speed caps off, the infamous spike glitch can be activated as well, you have access to the elemental shields from Sonic 3, and there's even an option to play a 7th special stage, which was designed exclusively for this port. The elemental shields are the main highlight of them all. They act exactly the same as they did in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and are surprisingly very useful in some stages. They make nearly every section look like a total cakewalk, and they even make Eggman look like a complete joke as well. Like, look at this right here. The Insta Shield's hitbox is retained from Sonic 3, and because of that, it's able to reach the Egg Stinger, and you can defeat Eggman instantly before he gets a chance to attack. The Lightning Shield especially makes the Egg Spiker a non-issue as well. And yes, obviously they were not originally designed for the game, but that doesn't mean they're not useful, especially during speedruns. As for the new special stage, it adds a 7th Chaos Emerald, which was not in the original game. If it is collected, Sonic can transform into Super Sonic, which is amazing to see. Big props to Christian and Simon for choosing to take the time and effort to add these. They didn't have to do this, but I'm glad they did so anyway. This remaster would eventually be re-released as part of the 2022 Sonic Origins collection, nearly a decade after the mobile release. This was the version I had to use for footage for this review. While it retains most features of the mobile release, there are a few changes that I'm not a fan of. For one, they decided to add the drop dash with no option to turn it off without effectively turning off the spin dash as well. The menu design and save slots have been replaced with these weird out of place character select menus, which seems like a lazy move by the devs, and for some baffling reason, they even got rid of the Marble Zone remix. Why they chose to do this is beyond me. This version can also be prone to glitches. During one of my runs on Spring Yard Zone Act 2, I accidentally clipped through the foreground after jumping from a slope curve. That's wonderful.
That wasn't supposed to happen.
In spite of these issues, playing the 2013 remaster through Sonic Origins is definitely the most ideal way to play the game, assuming if you're not using mods of course. It is still the best way to play Sonic 1 irrespective of a couple of problems, and I hate that it took almost a decade for Sega to give themselves up and port this and the Christian Whitehead remaster of Sonic 2 on consoles. I honestly cannot recommend this enough since I put a ton of playtime in the 2013 port during my high school days. I even did a playthrough of it 10 years ago, which I very much dislike now. But that's all I gotta say on this remaster. It's amazing, and you may find yourself enjoying your time with it. Hey guys, Future Braun here. So while editing this review, I actually came to the realization that the mobile ports of Sonic 1, 2, and CD have recently been delisted. I honestly don't know why they're committing this practice, especially since these versions have been greenlit so much through their 13-year history despite initially being made for mobile phones. Sega has a history of delisting their games from online stores without any sort of explanation, and it has since been confusing and frustrating for fans. Now the only way to play the best versions of these games are through Sonic Origins, which I feel Sega might be trying to push people into buying. Farewell retro engine versions of Sonic 1, 2, and CD. You will all be truly missed. Anyways, back to the video. And I believe that's all I got to say about Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis. This is my first ever video game review on this channel, so I'm really hoping you guys will be pleased with what I've tried to put up with this one. I've had this in the works for 3 months now, and I'm glad it's finally done so that I can move on to my next IDW Sonic review, which is issue 16. This script was pretty lengthy, so I don't know how long this video will be by the time I finish editing it. Like I said, I enjoy Sonic 1 a lot. I've been playing it for nearly 18 years, and it still very much holds a special place in my heart. Whether I'm playing casually or using speedrunning tricks, which by the way is my most preferred method of playing most games, I still have a great time with it. I struggled on most levels when I first played it as a kid, but nowadays, especially at my adult age, I can beat this whole game in one sitting without needing to take a break. Even before recording footage for this review, I've always found this game to be really easy, and I feel like people often underestimate this game due to their bad playing skills, their status as casual gamers who don't care in the slightest about learning tricks from skilled players or speedrunners, or just often blaming the game for their own mistakes. Might as well be all three at the same time. But all in all, Sonic 1 is a glorious masterpiece, and it has led to many things that made Sonic a brilliant icon. What do you guys think of this game? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, share this video to your friends, and turn on notifications for new content that I will release. My next review will be on the sequel, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, for the Sega Genesis. Thank you all for watching. I hope you're having a good day, night, evening, depending on which time zone you're in, and I will see you all in my next video. So peace out, take care, and stay safe.